that three major technology choices, all three choices were wrong. Okay, so this is how incredibly smart we were. But the moment we went public, they sold it. They go, wow, that's a miracle. And so they sold it. When Nvidia started in 1993, we were trying to create this new computing approach. The question is, what's the killer app? And the problem we wanted to, the company wanted to create a new type of computing architecture, a new type of computer that can solve problems that normal computers can't solve. Well, the applications that existed in the industry in 1993 are applications that normal computers can solve, because if the normal computers can't solve them, why would the application exist? And so we had a mission statement for a company that has no chance of success. But I didn't know that in 1993. It just sounded like a good idea.
Right.
So I went to Japan because the arcade industry had this, at the time of Sega, if you remember.
Sure.
The arcade machines, they came out with 3D arcade systems. Virtual Fighter, Daytona, Virtual Cop. All of those arcade games were in 3D for the very first time. And the technology they were using was from Martin Marietta, the flight simulators. They took the guts out of a flight simulator and put it into an arcade machine. The system that you have over here, it's got to be 1,000,000 times more powerful than that arcade machine. And that was a flight simulator for NASA.
Whoa.
And so they took the guts out of that. They were using it for flight simulation for jets and, space shuttle. And they took the guts out of that. And Sega had this brilliant computer developer. His name was Yu Suzuki. Yu Suzuki and Miyamoto, Sega and Nintendo, these were the incredible pioneers, the visionaries, the incredible artists. And they're both very, very technical. They were the origins, really, of the gaming industry. When you're a startup and the mission statement is the way we described, you're not going to have too many customers calling you. And so we had really nothing to do. And so after lunch, we would always have a great lunch. After lunch, we would go to the arcades and play the Sega Virtual Fighter and Daytona and all those games. And analyze how they're doing it, trying to figure out how they were doing that. And so we decided, let's just go to Japan and let's convince Sega to move those applications into the PC. And we would start the PC gaming, the 3D gaming industry, partnering with Sega. That's how Nvidia started.
Wow.
And so in exchange for them developing their games for our computers in the PC, we would build a chip for their game console. That was the partnership. I build a chip for your game console, you port the Sega games to us, and then they paid us at the time quite a significant amount of money to build that game console. And that was kind of the beginning of Nvidia getting started, and we thought we were on our way. And so I started with a business plan, a mission statement that wasn't possible. We lucked into the Sega partnership. We started taking off, started building our game console. And about a couple years into it, we discovered our first technology didn't work. It would have been a flaw. It was a flaw. And all of the technology ideas that we had, the architecture concepts were sound, but the way we were doing computer graphics was exactly backwards. Instead of, I won't bore you with the technology. We chose a bunch of technology approaches that three major technology choices, all three choices were wrong. Okay, so this is how incredibly smart we were. And so, in 1995, mid-95, we realized we were going down the wrong path. Meanwhile, the Silicon Valley was packed with 3D graphics startups because it was the most exciting technology of that time. So we were the first company to start. We found ourselves essentially dead last with the wrong answer. And so the company was in trouble. And ultimately, we had to make several decisions. The first decision is, well, if we change now, we will be the last company. And even if we changed into the technology that we believe to be right, we'd still be dead. And so that argument, do we change and therefore be dead? Don't change and make this technology work somehow? Or go do something completely different? The second problem we had was our company was running out of money. And I was in a contract with Sega. And I owed them this game console. And if that contract would have been canceled, we'd be dead. We would have vaporized instantly. Whew. And so I went to Japan and I explained to the CEO of Sega, Iri Majiri, really great man. He was the former CEO of Honda USA, went back to Sega to run Sega, went back to Japan to run Sega. And I went to him and I said, listen, I've got some bad news for you. And first, the technology that we promised you doesn't work. And second, we shouldn't finish your contract because we'd waste all your money and you would have something that doesn't work. And I recommend you find another partner to build your game console.
Whoa.
And so I'm terribly sorry that we've set you back in your product roadmap. And third, even though I'm asking you to let me out of the contract, I still need the money. Because if you didn't give me the money, we'd vaporize overnight. And he said, but it's very likely your company will go out of business, even with my investment. And it was completely true. Back then, 1995, $5 million was a lot of money. It's a lot of money today. $5 million was a lot of money. And here's a pile of competitors doing it right. What are the chances that giving Nvidia $5 million, that we would develop the right strategy, that he would get a return on that $5 million or even get it back? 0%. You do the math, it's 0%. If I were sitting there right there, I wouldn't have done it. $5 million was a mountain of money to Sega at the time. And I told him that I don't even know exactly what I said in the end, but I told him that I would understand if he decided not to, but it would make the world to me if he did. He went off and thought about it for a couple of days and came back and said, well, do it.
Wow. Did you have a
Majiri,
strategy as to how to correct what it was doing wrong? Did you explain that to him?
Oh, man, wait until I tell you the rest of it. It's scary, even scarier.
Oh, no.
And so what he decided was Jensen was a young man he liked. That's it.
Wow.
To this day.
That's nuts.
Boy,
but the world owes that guy.
No doubt.
Right?
If he would have kept that the investment, I think it'd be worth probably about $1 trillion today. I know. But the moment we went public, they sold it. They goes, wow, that's a miracle. And so
wow.
They sold it. Yeah, they sold it at Nvidia valuation about $300 million. That's our IPO valuation, $300 million.
Wow.
And so anyhow, I was incredibly grateful. And then now we had to figure out what to do because we still were doing the wrong strategy, wrong technology. So unfortunately, we had to lay off most of the company. We shrunk the company all back. All the people working on the game console, we had to shrink it all back. And then somebody told me that, but Jensen, we've never built it this way before. We've never built it the right way before. So luckily, there was a textbook written by the company Silicon Graphics. And so I went down to the store. I had $200 in my pocket, and I bought 3 textbooks, the only 3 they had, $60 a piece. I bought the 3 textbooks. I brought it back and I gave one to each one of the architects, and I said, read that and let's go save the company. So when we reimagined the technology of 3D graphics, we reimagined it in a way that manifests today, the modern 3D graphics. We really invented modern 3D graphics. But we learned from previous known arts, and we implement it fundamentally differently.
What did you do that changed it?
Well, ultimately, the simple answer is that the way Silicon Graphics works, the geometry engine is a bunch of software running on processors. We took that and eliminated all the generality, the general purposeness of it, and we reduced it down into the most essential part of 3D graphics, and we hard-coded it into the chip. And so instead of something general purpose, we hard-coded it very specifically into just the limited applications, limited functionality necessary for video games. That was our big invention. And of course the question is how do you compete against these 30 other companies doing what they were doing? And there we did several things. One, instead of building a 3D graphics chip for every 3D graphics application, we decided to build a 3D graphics chip for one application. We bet the farm on video games. And then the second thing that we did was we created a whole ecosystem of working with game developers and getting their games ported and adapted to our silicon so that we could turn essentially what is a technology business into a platform business, into a game platform business. We were the first technology company to build all of this incredible technology in service of one audience, gamers. Now, of course, in 1993, the gaming industry didn't exist. But by the time that John Carmack came along and the Doom phenomenon happened and then Quake came out, as you know, that entire
changed the world.
That entire community, boom, took off. If you just kind of, in the beginning was no gaming industry. We had no choice but to focus the company on one thing. That one thing.
It's a really incredible origin story. It's amazing. Like you must be like look back.
With a disaster is what.
That $5 million, that pivot with that conversation with that gentleman. If he did not agree to that, if he did not like you, what would the world look like today? That's crazy.
Oh wait, then our entire life hung on another gentleman. So, as you know, $5 million doesn't last long, and so every single month, we were drawing down. You have to build it, prototype it. You have to design it, prototype it, get the silicon back, which costs a lot of money. Test it with software. Because without the software testing the chip, you don't know the chip works. You didn't have that much time to tape out a chip, send it to a foundry, TSMC, get the silicon back, test it, send it back out again. There was no shot, no hope. And so the math, the spreadsheet doesn't allow us to do that. And so I heard about this company, and this company built this machine. And this machine is an emulator. You could take your design, all of the software that describes the chip. I could fix it all before I send it to the fab.
Whoa.
And if I could do that, when I send it to the fab, it should work. Nobody knows, but it should work. And so we came to the conclusion that let's take half of the money we had left in the bank. At the time, it was about $1 million. Take half of that money and go buy this machine. Call this guy up. The company's called ICOS. Call this company up and I say, hey, listen, I heard about this machine. I'd like to buy one. And they go, oh, that's terrific, but we're out of business. I said, what? You're out of business? He goes, yeah, we had no customers. And I said, wait, hang on a second. So you never made the machine? They said, no, we made the machine. We have one in inventory if you want it, but we're out of business. So I bought one out of inventory. Okay. After I bought it, they went out of business.
Wow.
I bought it out of inventory. And on this machine, we put Nvidia's chip into it, and we tested all of the software on top. And at this point, we were on fumes. But we convinced ourselves that chip is going to be great. And so I had to call some other gentleman. So I called TSMC. And I said, we have a lot of customers and the demand's really great. And we're going to tape out a chip to you. And I like to go directly to production because I know it works. And they said, nobody has ever done that before. Nobody has ever taped out a chip that worked the first time. And nobody starts out production without looking at it. But I knew that if I didn't start the production, I'd be out of business anyways. And if I could start the production, I might have a chance. And this gentleman is named Morris Chang. Morris Chang is the father of the foundry industry, the founder of TSMC. Really great man. He decided to support our company. I explained to them everything. He decided to support us, frankly, probably because they didn't have that many other customers anyhow. But they were grateful, and I was immensely grateful. And as we were starting the production, Morris flew to the United States, and he didn't so many words ask me so, but he asked me a whole lot of questions that was trying to tease out, do I have any money? But he didn't directly ask me that, And so the truth is that we didn't have all the money. But they supported us with all of that risk involved. We launched this chip. Turns out to have been completely revolutionary. Knocked the ball out of the park. We became the fastest growing technology company in history to go from 0 to $1 billion.
So wild that you didn't test the chip.
I know.
Well,
we tested afterwards. Yeah, we tested afterwards.
But he went into production already.
But by the way, that methodology that we developed to save the company is used throughout the world today.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we changed the whole world's methodology of designing chips, the whole world's rhythm of designing chips. We changed everything.
We don't play that. We don't play that. We don't play that. G-Unit. We don't play around.